Hola, buenas tardes a todos. También les quería recordar que sí tenemos interpretación para esta junta y si se quieren cambiar al canal de español pueden hacerle clic al botón abajo de su pantalla que dice Interpretation y escoger el canal en español. Y parece que, and it looks like Alex, our administrative assistant, just also put a Google form in our chat. We will ask for everyone at the end of the meeting if you wouldn't mind filling out a survey after the presentation and after we've had a chance to listen to it, the meeting today. So thank you everyone for being here. Like Sara said, this is a little bit different from our monthly meetings where we have different organizations come in and provide information about what they offer to our community. This monthly meeting is being hosted by our promotores, and specifically promotores who have been doing some work around civic engagement, city planning, and housing in Sonoma County, specifically in Santa Rosa. And they'll talk more about this and they will introduce themselves. And we're also really happy to be partnering with Jesus Guzman, who will also introduce himself. And he comes from Generation Housing. And he can also talk a little bit more about what Generation Housing does to really support housing in Sonoma County. So with that, I'm just going to pass it over to the promotores and to Jesus, and I will share my screen so that we can get started with the presentation.
Well, let's just move into can you guys hear me? I'm not sure if I'm muted. Yeah, perfect. Alrighty, everybody. Well, then thank you again for joining us. We're going to be presenting with Jesus Guzman, and we're going to give our self-introductions at the moment. So my name is Victor Peña. I'm currently a youth promotor with Latino service providers, and I am a student for political science at our local Santa Rosa Junior College. Now I'll invite everybody else to introduce themselves if they would like to, who are going to be helping us present today.
Hi, I'm Isabel Recinos. I'm a youth promotora with LSP, and I'm a future Sonoma State student.
Thank you. Juliet, not sure if you're still here. All right, Jesus, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Jesus Guzman here. Excited to join everyone today. I'm here with Generation Housing. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director with Gen H, and I'll share a little bit more about our work in our organization a little bit later. But also just want to give a shout out to Rosa and Wendy from PDI, who I see joined us today. So hey, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody that introduced themselves, and we're going to move right into it. So obviously, thank you for being here with us today. As you can see, most of us presenting here are youth promotores with Latino service providers. We are a group of students who are partnering with the city of Santa Rosa. And this partnership is made possible by funds provided from Kaiser Permanente to engage the Latinx community around issues of city planning, civic engagement, and housing. This presentation is one of few presentations we will be organizing in order to engage our community. Right now, some cities, like the city of Santa Rosa, are going through processes of updating the plans that determine how we and how they use land in their jurisdictions. Part of what we want to do is encourage our community members, such as yourselves, to become involved in this process and advocate for the equitable and building of a diverse housing community in Sonoma County and in our local cities like Santa Rosa. Now I'll be passing it on to my fellow youth promotor, Isabel Recinos.
Yeah, so in the slides following this exercise, we're going to be talking about the reality of housing in California and some reasons why we're in the housing situation that we're in, as well as some solutions to our housing crisis. But before we get into that information, we want to ask you, What do you want your neighborhood to look like? Or what kind of neighborhood would you like to see your children, yourself? And if you can use the link below to share your thoughts and ideas. And on the left side, there will be options to edit the board. Feel free to use the text box, sticky notes, or insert images. Or if you cannot use a link, you can use a piece of paper, or you can use the chat or turn your mic on, whatever works for you. We really all want you to dream big, and we want you to think about your home country or city or what you see different. Think about the corner stores, sidewalks, plazas, etc.
And I'd just like to share if I can. So I inputted this picture of a shop in the Italian corner in San Francisco. I'm a very visual person, so I was able to kind of Google Italian corner in San Francisco and then add a picture to the Jamboard, because that's kind of what my ideal neighborhood looks like, a place where there are lots of shops and places where people can live above those shops, and everything is just really vibrant and accessible. And that's kind of what I think of when I think about a neighborhood that I would really love to live in. And so if you're visual like me, there is an option on the left-hand side on the Jamboard where you can add an image, and you can do a quick Google image search for anything that you might want to add to the Jamboard. Or you can click on a sticky note and just write in words what you would like to see in your neighborhood.
I just dropped the link in the chat. I just saw Jimena Echevarria shared she would want her neighborhood to have family-owned businesses around the corner to support. Thank you for sharing, Jimena.
I really love the pictures that are being added. I don't know if whoever shared these pictures or added them to the Jamboard might want to say a little bit more about about what you posted? These are really great pictures that are being added. I love the picture of the food truck and the plaza. I actually think that's a picture of Mitote Food Park in Roseland. And the train. This to me kind of looks like a, I don't know what I'm really looking at in this picture right here. I'd love to hear more about this one. All right. Well, it looks like this was a good exercise. Thank you everyone for supporting. And Aura mentioned in the chat, I would want my neighborhood to have farmers markets, other local markets that prioritize BIPOC vendors, which I love. This kind of goes in line with this picture right here, which I love. Would like to see spaces where a community can come together and share safe cultural spaces. That's great. All right, so we're going to continue collecting this information because it's really great, rich information right from our community about what we want our neighborhoods to look like. So if you want to continue adding to the Jamboard, please feel free to do so, and we're going to continue with the presentation.
Is that me, Stephanie?
Yes.
Okay, great. So wanted to give folks a sort of, when we were talking about how to have this conversation, actually, before I jump into talking a little bit about the housing problem, let me take a step back and just offer a brief sort of overview of Generation Housing and the work that we do. Generation Housing, a nonprofit housing advocacy organization. We started up last year. So we've been around now for about a year. Much of our work centers around trying to convene different community organizations and partners from across the county to try to create one common agenda around how to advance more housing, more diverse housing, more affordable housing, to try to improve our housing affordability challenge. We do a lot of education, we do a lot of training, working with local elected officials and other folks in the community, and then advocating for good projects and good policies that will help get us there. So a lot of our work is collaborative. A lot of it is around education and much of it also around advocating and trying to move forward some of these solutions that we think can help improve our housing affordability. And so the housing problem is really big. So we're going to try to take a slice of that. And one way I think that to think about something that's largely sort of distinct to California. It's not the only place in which this is happening, but I think it's most acute here in California is that when we think about the kind of housing that we have built, much of it has been over the last 50 years, so after World War II. And a lot of the housing that's been built, especially on the West Coast for newer cities, like those in Sonoma County, where a lot of the growth happened in the 70s and the 80s. I live in Windsor. And Windsor is a place that grew a lot in the 90s and 2000s, right? For people that were in Hillsburg or in Santa Rosa before, they saw in their lifetimes Windsor as a town sort of grow a lot, right? So, but our towns in California have grown in a very particular way. And the way that they've grown is that it's been largely through something like single family homes. And I think the way for us to think about what that means for us now is that this is one example. It says 60% of homes in most of California are single family detached homes, very common for the suburbs. In Windsor and in Santa Rosa, and honestly in most cities in Sonoma County, it's closer to 80% of the types of homes that we have are these. And they're beautiful homes. They're homes that are very characteristic of the suburbs. But there's a real challenge that I think we're trying to wrestle with now, which is that we also have something called urban growth boundaries that have been a response to trying to curb sprawl so that the cities aren't just growing out into more wildfire prone areas, into taking up more ag and farmland and open space, right? I think there's a real environmental reason for why we want to try to curb the growth of cities outward. And we do have voter approved initiatives in Sonoma County. Time and time again, they're very popular, that have limited how much we grow out. So we've only got so much space, right, that we've got to work with. And we also have some real housing. We have a real challenge in terms of building more housing within that space. And so how do we think about this existing housing situation where so much of it is densely populated, right, with these types of single family homes? There's very few apartments. And in fact, we have regulations in our local cities that actually ban apartments. They ban duplexes. They ban triplexes and cottage homes cottage homes are sort of like smaller units that are around like a little courtyard. Those are actually illegal. Those are banned. We have some cities that have them, but they've sort of been grandfathered in because much of our cities are zoned for single family, and that's it. You can't put, if you own a single family and you want to put a duplex in several cities in the county, it would be illegal. You couldn't actually do that. But there may be a good reason for it, right? Some of these units will be more affordable. Duplexes, fourplexes, cottage homes, ADUs up until recently were also illegal, right? ADUs, those little casitas that we put in the backyard, those were actually illegal. A lot of people built them, but they were not permitted by the city. Those were not allowed. And that's changed recently. But that's a nice way of making different housing types a little bit more affordable for folks. So we're only actually allowed in most places, in most of our cities, to build single family, and that's it. You can't actually build anything else. And a lot of these other types would be more affordable. So it's part of the problem. It's not the only one. It's not the only problem that we have. We need more taxpayer money to also build affordable homes for lower income families. But we can't actually do that until we change some of the zoning to even allow for some of these more affordable housing types as well. So if we go to the next slide, Stephanie, I think we can sort of think about what the neighborhoods can look like that might be a little bit more different, right? That aren't dramatically different from what we currently have, right? We have so much of Santa Rosa, so much of all of our cities right now look like the prior slide. So many of the neighborhoods are sort of smaller density. So thinking about how we can actually add a lot of homes that could be affordable if we start sort of diversifying the types of homes that we have in our neighborhoods that are currently actually legal to build. And doing this where we add, even in the lower density neighborhoods, you can see here, we could add duplexes and casitas and a four unit apartment. It's small, right? Like it's actually not a very, but all of those things could actually really go a long way towards adding more housing and improving our affordability. And of course, like in a place like Santa Rosa, we have the sort of the downtown core area, and the city wants to see more housing, more high-rise type housing happen there as well. And all of that is going to take pressure off the rental market right now and trying to buy homes, because there's so much demand, there's a lot of pressure, and that stuff keeps increasing the rents, keeps increasing housing prices. It makes it a lot harder for things to be affordable. So part of the response is, how do we build more homes? Where do we locate these? And that's sort of leads us to the present right now, with the cities looking at, and Victor was just explaining, at the beginning, was that each city and town in California has the plan for housing over the next 8 years, starting in 2023, going to 2031. So that's 8 years. So we've got to put together a planning document, sort of a master plan. It's called a housing element. And in that document, we got to get community input to figure out how we build enough housing to meet some of our targets. And Santa Rosa, I'll give you an example. Santa Rosa has been required by the state to build about 4,600 total homes over those 8 years. The county as a whole, Sonoma County as a whole, we've got to build about 14,000 total homes over that time to try to meet the needs of our workforce and everybody that sort of lives and works in Sonoma County. That's a lot of homes, right? And we've got this document to try to figure out how to plan for that. And so this is potentially one way that we can start thinking about how we try to get there. And want to encourage everybody that's on the call is that this document is probably the most important document that most of us have never heard of. This housing element is this obscure document that the city does every 8 years. Not a lot of us hear about it very much, but it influences what gets built, where it gets built, and when it gets built. And all of that affects the rents and where we live and the types of homes that we have. And I really want to encourage everybody to participate, get involved in this. When we just went through this exercise about what do you want your neighborhood to look like, this is the opportunity to do that. This is the document that literally shapes what those next 8 years are going to look like for the city. So it's really, really important. I can't overstress how important that is. And hopefully this gives us a sense of what's possible, but there's a lot more that also needs to go along with this. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Victor and others.
Perfect. Unmuted now. All right. Well, thank you, Jesus, for that wonderful information, that very, I guess, concerning but also helpful information for us to know how to engage and where to really find that good information, such as the housing element that, as you mentioned, is a document that not many of us know of. So I know myself, I'm going to look into it and hopefully learn a little bit more about what that actual document is. Now, given the information that Jesus presented and considering where you live, where can we put these homes? Now, knowing that more equitable and diverse housing is the solution, we want you all to think about Sonoma County, your neighborhoods, and where we can put these homes. So our next exercise right here, we're going to go back, I believe, to our Jamboard, and we're just going to put down some ideas of where we believe we can put these equitable housing, I guess, solutions, or just simple ideas, or even just a little anecdote of where you believe would be a good idea to place such infrastructure for our communities.
Can we drop the link again for those who might be joining us for maybe they didn't see the first link?
Just put it in the chat again.
Thank you. And we're on page 4 of the Jamboard.
Yeah, as a little FYI, page 4 is the exercise 2. Considering where you live, where can we put these homes?
I just put one on the Jamboard. I put little ADUs, accessory dwelling units, I believe is the term or the definition of ADU on larger properties. I know that my parents have been looking into building an ADU on their property, and it takes willingness on the part of the homeowner. But I think that this is a great way to build more homes and more diverse homes in Sonoma County.
I just want to say really quick, if there's some of you that are joining us through your phone and can't necessarily go through to both pages at the same time, feel free to drop your responses in the chat and I can definitely include them on the board.
I like this blue sticky. Thank you for that one. Thank you, Jimena, for your comment. I'm adding it to the Jamboard.
And if I may just sort of offer a comment about Jimena's comment, which is a great one, and I thank you for mentioning that, because I think we have seen a pretty disproportionate share of home building that tends to happen in Latino communities and lower income communities. It's certainly been the case also in Santa Rosa, where a lot of that home building has been this sort of the burden has been placed and shifted away from some of the wealthier communities. So if you think of like East Santa Rosa, Rincon Valley, Bennett Valley, these sort of neighborhoods that have a lot more money, they've been a lot more effective in organizing against new housing in their neighborhoods. And it's left the rest of the city to try to actually pick up some of that slack. So to Jimena's point, right, the city of Sonoma itself and other affluent communities have been really good at saying no to housing, and should maybe, we should reconsider ways of how to have them also more equitably share. And what's a challenge for all of us, right?
Yeah, I'd like to also add on to kind of that comment. I think we see it like across Sonoma County, right? Like Jimena's description is of Sonoma Valley or Boys Hot Springs. I live in Roseland, where so much development is happening, and I think part of the reason why there's not a lot of pushback is because folks understand that we need more homes too. I mean, people who are really impacted by housing living in Roseland, living in multi-generational homes or in really dense situations, understand that we need more homes. And so they're not necessarily going to speak out against developments because we need more homes, right? But we need them to not be concentrated in our neighborhood, because we don't have the infrastructure for that much development that's happening right now. That's another example of that. Okay, well, I haven't seen other stickies come in. Again, the Jamboard is open if you'd like to continue adding to this Jamboard. We are collecting this information, so please feel free to continue adding your thoughts, and we'll go back to the presentation and continue. And thank you for participating.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I was having technical difficulties, but my name is Juliet Rosales. I'm a YP and a board of director for Latino Service Providers. And a little bit on how you can get involved. You can get involved with generational housing, connecting with Jesus, and then follow us on LSP YPs on social media for future platicas. And if you live in Santa Rosa, you can follow and learn more about the Santa Rosa Forward, which is the general plan. And let's see. Can someone move it to the next slide, please?
Oh, sorry, Juliet. Sorry, before we move on to the next slide, I'm wondering if Jesus, you might be able to share what opportunities Generation Housing has for becoming more involved in these conversations around housing in Sonoma County?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're, like I mentioned, the housing element is the most important document none of us have ever heard of. I didn't until I started with Generation Housing. So it totally fair. Most of us have not heard of this thing, but it's super, super important. So we, right now is really good time because they're going through this general plan update, and we're going to be sort of organizing a hub that will sort of hopefully bring some folks together that are interested in sort of participating in their local housing element process. And so if you live in Sonoma, like some folks, sounds like there's some people on the call that live in the city of Sonoma or around the city of Sonoma, or other parts of the county, we want to be involved in the housing elements that each of these cities is going to be undergoing. So check out our website. We're going to get some information about that up soon, about how you can get involved with the housing element. And then we're planning to have some meetings here starting up in next month, and some educational webinars and resources to have folks feel more comfortable about engaging in this process, and advocating and speaking up and hopefully contributing and offering our input to what this housing element can look like and what it can do for our community. So I encourage you to check us out on Facebook, on Twitter. Certainly go to generationhousing.org to learn more, and just sign up for our notifications, our email blasts, to stay up to date on any of that as we launch that here over the next few weeks.
Thank you, Jesus. And I also wanted to kind of follow up on Juliet's suggestion or recommendation of following the youth promotores on social media for future pláticas. So the students that are presenting, co-presenting with Jesus at the moment, like I mentioned earlier, are part of a track of promotores with Latino service providers who are specifically working in partnership with the city of Santa Rosa, with the Santa Rosa Forward plan, the update of the general plan. And so they will be hosting other pláticas and sharing more information about this process, to try to help the city do outreach so that folks get involved in this process, because it is a very important process, and it only comes around every once in a long while. And so it's important for us to have a say in this, and we're really happy that our youth are being involved and are kind of leading the way for this outreach. So I just wanted to also emphasize that our promotores will be doing more of this work, and we'd like for you to join them in this process. And I will pass it on to the next slide.
So thank you everyone for participating, and just like what Stephanie was saying about the future pláticas, we also want to invite you to go visit our YouTube channel and Instagram and Facebook, where we already have the Kaiser Track a video educating about what the general plan is and what the plans are for that. Thank you.
So just as down in the chat, we have a couple of links. There's the link for Generations Housing website and also Latino service providers. And we also have the Instagram and Facebook page for the youth promotores in the chat.
Thank you all. I will stop screen sharing now. And we'd love to hear any reflections or comments, or if there are questions that we have. There are probably a lot of questions around housing, but maybe anything related to the presentation itself.
Thank you, Stephanie. Like she mentioned, please, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. If you cannot, if you're having technical difficulties, again, I invite you to please include the question in our chat box. Also, if you haven't looked at the Jamboard, please also include any information that you would like. But at this time, our program is now open for questions.
Can I make a quick question as a clarification? Maybe Jesus has the answer to my question. So for a while, I've been wondering, because I remember many years back hearing that here in Santa Rosa, there was a specific ordinance, not sure if it was law, restricting on high-rise apartment complex buildings, or what was high-rise, I guess, just large complex buildings. Is that still a thing, or is there, because I'm not sure if that was ever a thing or if it was a thing, because now I see high-rise apartment complexes popping up here and there. I'm not sure if that was ever a thing.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a thing. The zoning, if some folks may be familiar with sort of what zoning means at a local city level, and it's we have things zoned for residential and what type of residential you can put in commercial and what kind of commercial and office and industrial and all these things, right? It's sort of meant to sort of map out a city and say where you could put these things and where you can't put these things. And zoning is one way that we do that. And so for much of Santa Rosa's up until recently, there were height limits on how much and how high something could go. But Santa Rosa specifically over the last few years they put together a plan that of trying to sort of reimagine what the downtown core can look like. And sort of part of that plan is to allow for more of these larger buildings, especially since the SMART train is in downtown Santa Rosa. So that having the train down there and wanting to have the downtown core grow, they're trying to encourage more of these sort of taller buildings. So we have seen just in this last year in 2020, we saw a number of buildings that are double-digit stories, 12, 13 stories that are being approved, and we'll start construction here, some of them pretty soon. One of them right next to the Press Democrat building, another one that's I think on Ross Street. There's a few like in that downtown area that are actually going to be pretty tall, and some that are being proposed that over the next year that will be even taller. So that's all part of trying to grow Santa Rosa and the downtown core specifically because it's near transit. It hopefully will have more shops. And I'll add one other thing, which is that the old Sears, I imagine everybody knows about the old Sears at the mall. That site, they're trying to work, there's nothing confirmed yet, but the city's trying to work through with Simon Malls to try to redevelop that old Sears. It's currently vacant, right? I think they put like a business that's leasing the first floor, but they want to redevelop it and actually put a grocery store there because like if you're going to have more housing downtown, you actually need a really important thing like a grocery store, and there really isn't one in the downtown area. So they're trying to redevelop that, have a grocery store to also support the more housing that they're trying to put down there, so that people can be able to walk to work. A lot of jobs that are sort of in the downtown area, have a grocery store, have the train, so that things are sort of within walking distance of the new housing that goes in.
Okay, so as we do have a question in the chat, and it says, how do we inform our parents or people who only speak Spanish to become involved? Is this information / videos also available in Spanish?
And I can jump in there really quickly, actually. So if you go to our the Youth Promotores' Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, wherever there is an opportunity to post a video, we're there. The information around the update of the general plans for the city of Santa Rosa and the importance of that, that is available in English and in Spanish on basically any platform where we can put videos. So that's a great question, Ali. And the track that these youth promotores are in is to do exactly that, is to engage our Latino community, our Spanish-speaking community members, those who haven't, been previously engaged in these conversations, and to try to do some diverse and innovative outreach. And so we have some plans for that, and we're really excited to share that with everyone as we kind of roll all of that out within the next few months.
Thank you, Stephanie. I did go ahead and share the YouTube video created by the Youth Promotores on the chat. If you would like to take a look, I included the Spanish version and I'll go ahead and include the English version as well. Again, all these videos are available on our YouTube channel, as well as the LSP Youth Promotor Facebook page and Instagram page. With that being said, I would like to invite anyone else if you have any other questions for Jesus or the Youth Promotores.
Or comments and reflections. We also welcome that. Yeah. Housing is a big topic. We recognize and acknowledge that. So there are probably a lot of questions, but you know, we're just kind of scratching at the surface of all of it, and this is one of our first attempts at that. And so we also welcome reflections and feedback so that we can improve our process and hear what works and what doesn't work. And if you have any ideas on how our promotores can do some really great outreach with the community, we'd love to hear that too.
I think I have a reflection. Tatiana Lopez, Victim Services with the DA's office. I think it's a great topic. Kind of like Stephanie mentioned, a lot of our victims do live kind of in the more condensed areas of Santa Rosa. And housing is always a challenge, especially when you become victimized by domestic violence, being one of them. And I'm thinking about, I think it was Ali Soto who mentioned, you know, how I wasn't really aware of the guidelines with buildings. I have a property near Roseland area, and I know that the little farm is around there. I know that there's also a little new development of housing, and it's crazy to see what those houses are going for because they're not very I don't know, they're not near the income that they should be, in my opinion. And then I'm also noticing that there is, I believe, affordable apartments being built off the corner of 3rd and Dutton. And so it's interesting to see that all the development is happening in the downtown area of Santa Rosa. And to, you know, obviously, you know, where our offices is and public transportation and how it takes individuals, it's a challenge for them to come to this side of town where Kaiser is, where Sutter is. And so I think when we're looking at further development, you know, service providers being available to bus routes, but also like having more green places available, like a playground for the kids in those more condensed areas and neighborhoods is something that's made me reflective, has made me think about as we're having this discussion. It's fantastic to see that the youth promoters are very involved, and it's exciting to see where the generation of Santa Rosa and Sonoma County will head. So thanks for bringing this topic to this meeting today. That's my reflection.
Thank you, Tatiana. That's, yes, that's very insightful. And I took some of what you were saying and I went to the Jamboard where we're collecting information and added some of those comments in there. Thank you.
We also have 2 comments on the chat. One of them is from Rosa that reads, more affordable housing for families. This could decrease doubled up families in one home. And then Mons also said, I love the initiative to get the community involved in housing. One suggestion would be that for next workshops, maybe we could hear about tenants' rights.
Thank you for that suggestion, Monse. I think Juliet has actually been dabbling in that a little bit, making connections with Juliet, what's the name of the organization or the name of the group that you've been connecting with?
Sonoma County Tenants Union.
Sonoma County Tenants Union, yeah. I see there's a question in the chat that from Noemi, what about the homeless population? I'm wondering if you could say more about that, Noemi, about that question.
Hi. Yeah, I was just wondering if there is any efforts that you guys might be aware of for our homeless population, because a lot of our, there's a lot of Latino people that are also homeless. So I don't know if there is any efforts to get them housing or get them some support, because every time I look around, there's more and more homeless and more and more people that can't have a place to live. And I'm just wondering if there's any efforts in that regard. Sorry, my throat is like.
No worries. I don't know, Jesus, if you know of any like concrete efforts. I mean, I can say that I know of the coordinated entry system through the county, and so you can call the number that helps folks get into the system, and then match them up with a shelter or an organization that handles those kinds of situations, and that's kind of coordinated through the county. And so that's what I know of, and I'm happy to share that link in the chat, but I don't know if Jesus, you know of anything.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the way we think about homelessness and the type of solutions, I think homelessness for a long time has sort of been thought of as a mental health issue, as an addiction issue. And it's certainly the case that folks that are unhoused disproportionately experience some of these things in their lives. But I think the solutions that have been most effective have been the ones that focused on getting people housed first. And getting people housed that are unhoused really goes a long way to helping with addressing some of the mental health issues that may be impacting them, right? So like getting people housed is really the most important thing. And it seems obvious, but it's actually not been a really super obvious thing that a lot of cities have actually struggled to even align themselves with. How do we solve our homelessness problem? Or like the fact that we have folks that are out living and sleeping out on the street, their first response has not often been, let's get more housing for these folks. The way that cities have, at least I'll give you an example with Santa Rosa recently as an example of trying to actually build more housing for folks that are unhoused, is they've been working with Burbank Housing, which is a nonprofit housing organization here in Sonoma County, and they've been working with Catholic Charities, so sort of the city, Catholic Charities, that does a lot of homelessness services, in Burbank that does a lot of sort of housing, right, affordable housing for folks. The three of them sort of have been working together, and Caritas Project, which I keep thinking of as Caritas, but everybody calls it Caritas, is this project that is being built near the mall, right? It's right next to the museum. If folks know where the Sonoma County, I think, museum is at, next to the mall and Macy's, that little area. It's replacing the old sort of homeless service site that Catholic Charities used to run, and it's going to provide about 100 homes. It's also going to have services on site, and that is going to be specifically for folks that are experiencing homelessness, and as a way of having permanent housing, as a way of also having support services on site, right? So that where they live, they're also getting services. So this is meant to try to help folks that are unhoused through sort of housing first, and also getting the services that they need. But we need a lot more of that, because that stuff requires taxpayer money, right? Like those are public dollars that are going into building that. And the need is a lot greater than the 100 units that are getting built there. We know we need a lot more of those. And so that's gonna, thank you, Rosa. I see folks dropping stuff in about the project. And so we're gonna need a lot more of those throughout the county, right? And so definitely and funding is gonna be the #1 challenge of making that happen. But there's some stuff that's happening locally that are a good example of what can be done. We just need to figure out how to scale that up to do more of it.
Yeah, after I said I don't know of anything, I realized, wait a minute, I do know of some things and some other concrete examples of housing first approaches in Santa Rosa and Sonoma County that I know of. The Palms Inn, it used to be a hotel, and then Akash, I don't remember Akash's last name, but he's the son of the owners, and he kind of redesigned it to be a place for homeless veterans with wraparound services and support. And so that's become a really great model of housing first in Santa Rosa, using something that was already existing and redesigning it to meet the needs of the community. And then the other project that I thought of is Los Guilicos. It's like a tiny home village, and that was it's like still in its like infancy, but from what I hear about Los Guilicos, it's a really great place where people feel safe and they have access to services. And like Jesus said, we need more of this. We need more of these housing first approaches, but that's not typical. That's not always where people go in their mind, I think, when they're thinking about how do we really address homelessness. Not everyone thinks of, well, you offer homes, right? So
I have a question for the youth promotores that also presented. Um, I know you were all in the Kaiser track, particularly looking at housing. I'm curious to know how this track has kind of opened up your views of housing or like your experiences.
I can share first if that's fine. Um, I guess going into this internship and going into the Kaiser track specifically, I really, I myself, I like to get myself in tune with what's happening with the city. But when it came to housing, I really had practically zero knowledge of, ordinances or laws or anything that was actually going on within the city, or why we can't build this here, or what needs to be done to actually build such, I guess, such infrastructure or buildings, or even a simple as the little granny units on the side. I think we called them APU, I believe. Those little units, and it was I basically knew nothing about it. And then being in this internship and really looking into the general plan, and even sitting in like just city council meetings and just learning a little bit more of how the city works, I've been able to learn that it is a little bit more complex to actually get affordable housing and get these plans moving along, because there's certain steps and certain bureaucratic lines that need to be, I guess, be done for the safety of our communities. And so to make sure that everybody has enough sources, enough resources to really live in the same area, and make sure that we're not overpopulating one certain area. So I guess it really has opened my eyes up to understand that there is much more going on at the city level to build a simple small apartment complex, or even having to put a simple attachment to your home. There is multiple steps, and I didn't know about that before I actually joined the internship.
Thank you, Victor. And just to follow up, how would you encourage youth to get involved? Particularly, like you mentioned, you didn't know much about housing prior to this internship. So how would you encourage other youth to get involved?
Well, first off, I'd like to plug in, if you really want to get involved, Latino Service Providers is taking in applications for our next cohort of interns. This internship is a really great tool that is really going to be able to provide youth with many tools and really take us on this course of self-growth, and also of learning within our community how things are run and why it has to be this certain way, and what we can do as youth to really have a voice and be heard by those people that are actually making the decisions higher up. But my recommendation for any youth would obviously send in an application to Latino Service Providers, get involved with Generation Housing as myself. You can become a Generation Housing member, join their newsletter, learn of information that's going on there. And at times, even just joining in on a city council meeting or some some type of meeting at the city level and just sit down maybe a half an hour, a couple of minutes and just listen to what's going on. Little by little, if you do that pretty often, you're going to be able to learn about what's going on in your city, and you're going to listen of all the opportunities that you have to join. And it's never restricted. I've never had the opportunity where I've never been able to join anything. I go to a meeting and I am invited to join. I feel like as youth, we're with the notion that we're not invited because we're underage, but that's never the reality. We have a voice and we should be heard. And if you go to a meeting and you speak, more than 100% you will be heard by anybody who is there. So don't be afraid, just be there and give your opinion.
Thank you, Victor. Okay. Anyone else? Again, any comments, feedback, questions you may have, please, I encourage you all to speak up. Again, if you're, for some reason, microphone is not working, please include it in the chat. Or any last remarks, any last comments that anyone would like to say? No, going once. Okay, no worries. All right. But again, I would like to thank the youth promotores, Jesus and Generation Housing for being present with us today. Like we mentioned at the beginning, there is a survey going around. Thank you, Alex. You just dropped it in the chat box. If you can please fill that out, that would be very much appreciated. But with that being said, again, huge thank you to everyone present here today. We're going to now move forward. If there are no other questions, we're going to move forward with our round robin, which, if none of you are familiar with, round robin is kind of an opportunity for everyone to give a little 1 to 2 minute spiel about like who they are, what organization they work for, etc. If you, or just how you're doing. If you would like not to be called on, please let me know and I won't call on you. But with that being said, let me pull up presenters. First we have Aaron Solorio.
Hi everyone, can y'all hear me? All right, so yeah, my name is Aaron Solorio. As of like 2 weeks ago, I'm the community engagement specialist for Latino service providers. So definitely happy to be in this space with you all. You know, a little bit about myself. You know, I'm born and raised here in Sonoma County. Pretty much spent most of my upbringing in Petaluma, and currently staying in the Cotari Rono Park area. And yeah, I guess in my role as the community engagement specialist, you know, what I look forward to the most is really being out in the community when you know, like the restrictions permit, and doing that, you know, engaging, but more importantly, building community, building connections, and just being a support to those that need it. And yeah, are we popcorning, or are you just choosing?
I'm going down the list. You're good. Thank you, Aaron. Next, we have Alex Sosa.
Hi, everybody. I'm the admin here at Latino Service Providers. I currently go to the Santa Rosa Junior College. I feel good today. I'm excited about the weekend, and yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we have Ali Soto.
Hello, my name is Ali Soto. I'm a youth promoter with Latino Service Providers. I'm currently going to Santa Rosa Junior College. I'm in my last semester before I transfer to SSU. And today I'm feeling productive, even though the weather is rainy, but I'm feeling productive at home.
Thank you, Ali. Next, we have Sorry, I lost the Imelda.
All right. Hello, everybody. I was a little bit late today. I'm doing a training, a leadership training for CPI. So it was kind of between the timing, but it's a really interesting program through the Office of Victims of Crime, and it's for leaders who are interested in wanting to go into leadership roles for agencies that serve victims of crime. So it's really cool. It's really exciting, and I'm happy to be taking that training. But with my organization, with the Child Parenting Institute, we're currently continuing as COVID is looking like it's, getting a little bit better, and think we're going back into the community. Some of our programming is still ongoing in terms of virtual, because we're learning that we are getting a lot more participation with parents participating through Zoom versus them going to CPI for classes. So one of our most popular programs within Child Parenting Institute is our classes. And it could be one of it. The reason is because they're through Zoom, and the classes are all free, and they're both English and Spanish. And also there's various topics. So there are various topics on co-parenting, raising daughters, positive parenting, also on managing family anger. And so